Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here on the At Home series. The whole point is to, give all of you kind of the human side of what it's like to be at Cisco or any company you work for, and deal with a crisis like we've got going on right now, with whether you've got a family at home, responsibilities like pets or whatever your situation is. We all deal with it a little bit differently. And so today we're going to talk to one of my friends here at Cisco about what his situation is like in a different area than I live in the Bay Area, and different situation, and we'll just kind of see how this situation or this crisis has really affected him. So today we are at home with Ben Martin. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining. So I guess the intro question I kind of like to ask everybody really is, how are you doing? How are things different for you today than they were a month or two ago?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I first of all, I say I'm very fortunate. I mean, I'm based in Kansas City. We haven't been in like a hot zone type area. It's definitely had a big material impact on our day to day. The kids are at home. We've been sheltering in place for 60 plus days now. But the
Surreal.
good news is everybody's healthy, happy, getting more family time than we normally get. Travel is completely, come to a crawl or it's non-existent. So it's had a material impact, but we're doing very, very well, all things considered.
That's good. I mean, it's good to hear. I mean, I don't know how tough it can be, especially with kids at home. And I think your kids are probably older than mine. My 4.5-year-old is, but I got to imagine that it's a different set of problems when your kids are a little bit older.
Yeah, it's so weird. So normally the rule before the pandemic was, hey, you get like an hour of screen time a day, go play with your friends.
Yeah.
Whew. Then everybody goes into sheltering in place, and it's like, well, why don't you go ahead and do hour number 3 or 4 on the iPad? And even though
Yeah.
you see your friend riding his bike down the street, you need to stay in.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that it's like I feel like I'm kind of living in a bizarre world to a certain extent, where it's like, hey, yeah, watch TV, play on electronics, don't go bike riding. Um, so it's been different, but it's been good. And I saw my wife this last night. I was like, I feel like our kids have gotten more kind of like 90s, pop culture, kind of what, growing up, I'm, playing
Fantastic. Awesome.
Mario 3 with my almost 9-year-old. We're watching Space Jam. We've watched the Michael Jordan series, the
Yeah.
Last Dance. So it's like
Wow.
my kids are going to be more understanding of like what happened in the 80s and 90s than probably what they would have been had we not gone through the sheltering in place.
Definitely. I tried to actually get my 4.5-year-old to watch Thundercats with me the other day. He was not.
Nice.
This is totally not having it. I'm like, but it's the greatest. He's like, no, Daddy, we're not. He wants to watch some new show called I think it's called The Last Kids on Earth on YouTube, like about the zombie apocalypse. I'm like, great. That's not what I need him to watching right now, but whatever. It keeps him on the couch drawing on his Etch a Sketch all day. So you know what? I'm happy about that.
Well, and it's funny. I say that I've exposed them more to like the pop culture of my childhood. I've also kind of got more exposure into hey Dad, let's sit down and watch Dude Perfect together. Hey, there's this YouTuber that I watch, and hey, we're gonna play The Floor Is Hot Lava, and it's like,
Oh
all
man,
right, here we go.
yeah,
This is now I'm getting more exposure to their world, so
that's
it's
good.
good.
You mentioned something a second ago about your oldest is seeing someone like a friend outside riding their bike and like, oh nope, sorry, you can't go out there. We had the exact same problem. We have we live right at the beginning of a cul-de-sac. There's only like 2 or 3 more homes in our cul-de-sac, and there's a couple kids at the end that are older than my son, but he was liking to ride his bikes and stuff with them. And for a little bit, we were okay with it, even social distancing, because the kids were staying away from each other. Until one day, my wife's out there, she comes back in upset, and one of our neighbors, a couple older folks in the neighborhood, were like getting within feet of my son and like about to like touch him to like help him on his bike. And I know they meant well, but it's like it's just there's a lot of people who have just a different concept of what's okay and what's not okay right now. And I have to imagine like we've had to start keeping the bay window blinds up so he doesn't see the kids playing outside, because then it becomes like a whole, how do you tell a 4-year-old you can't go out and hang out with kids? Like they don't
Yeah.
understand this right now, and it's tough for sure.
That's it's been probably the toughest thing for us to tell them, hey, no, you can't do this. And we also worry. I mean, for their development, a big part of the development at this age is social and being around other kids and learning how to share and learning how to win gracefully or lose gracefully. And
Mhm.
I want my kids to be able to go out and do the driveway, pick up game of basketball or to jump on the trampoline with friends. And, um, that's the next thing that we're trying to figure out is now we're officially, as of yesterday, off the shelter in place.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's like, now it's all right. Well, you can go ride your bikes out there, but I don't want to see you guys, transition from bike riding to, 5 kids on a trampoline. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. Makes
So it's
sense.
like, you can go down, bike ride, you're 6 feet away from each other. I mean, probably going to crash into each other if you don't. So it's like there's some activities that lend themselves well to, hey, you're good, you're safe, and there's other activities where it's like, no, bad idea.
Yeah, wrestling on the front lawn or whatever. It's like, no, that's not okay yet. Got to keep away from that. How has I mean, has especially with the kids in the neighborhood? I don't know what your neighborhood is like, but at least where we live, it's mostly older folks in our neighborhood. There are some families with younger kids, but they're either, my son's 4.5. They're either 2 or 3 years older than him, which at that age is like they don't even want to socialize, or they're toddlers. I mean, they're like 1 and 2. So there's not a lot of kids for him. How about for you guys? Do your kids like have a lot of other friends in the neighborhood that have made where that's actually made this even harder, or has that been a
Yeah,
thing?
I mean, it's just, it's one of our favorite things about this neighborhood is it's stacked with kids. I mean, kids are out, I think on this block we probably have 20 kids that go to the
Oh
same
wow.
elementary school as so we've got a 9-year-old that'll go into third grade. He'll turn 9 this summer. We've got a our middle daughter. She'll she's 6 and she'll go into second grade next year, and then our son will start kindergarten. So they'll all be at the same school, and there's probably 20 kids on the block, and then probably 40 kids, within adjacent streets or close streets nearby. So it's awesome. I mean, I love seeing them play. It's a great environment. We like the neighborhood parents. Um, I feel like we've got a really good community where people are looking out for our kids. I mean, there's been times where you know running back, chasing daughter one direction, son's going another way, and um, the neighborhood parents are out there looking and saying, oh yeah, let me help you, you fell off your bike, or you need to tie your shoe, or um, I can see these kids are playing rough, and I need to start to kind of unwind them. So it's a good environment, and that's the thing that's made it tough. Is hey, we've got a great environment. It's one of our favorite things, but we've had to be really careful, and even going forward, it's try to talk to the other parents and say, what, are you guys okay with kids riding bikes? We're not okay with them being on a trampoline with 6 other kids, but
Yeah.
are you fine with them playing catch with the baseball? Can they play, horse and with basketball, but not play a full pickup game? So it's not only trying to fill out just the norms and what's acceptable for our kids, but also making sure that other parents are aligned with us. So
How
um,
have the kids?
interesting times.
Yeah, no kidding. Have your kids, I mean, I would imagine the youngest probably doesn't really get it, but your older kids, do they at least somewhat understand like why this is so important? Or is it still kind of like a
Um,
little bit above them?
it's I'd say it's still a little bit above them. I mean, our 9-year-old, he'll sit down and watch the news with me, and
Mhm.
he'll pick up snippets, and sometimes the snippets that he picks up are hey dad, this doesn't impact kids like it impacts adults. I should be able to go out and do whatever I want to do. Well,
100%.
you're still a carrier. You could still spread it. You're going to see your we hadn't seen his grandparents for a while. We've kept him
Mhm.
you know separated from the grandparents throughout all this. But it's like, hey, whenever you do get back around them, you need to make sure that you're healthy, and it's stuff like that. That it's there's basic concepts that they get. There's selective stuff that they like to hear that favors them, and
Yeah,
there's other stuff that just kind
true.
of goes over their head. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's tough for I know it's tough for everybody, regardless of whether you have kids or not. I don't want to like corner it into like if you're a parent, it's a lot harder than other people because it's definitely not. And I guess that's a question I'm really curious about from you is especially as a parent. Now I only have one, so I can't. It's hard to imagine what it's like to have three of that different of an age. What have you found as a really good way for you or you and your wife to sort of create a rhythm in your day? And what I mean by that is I came across something recently that talked about how the idea of the work-life balance metaphor isn't real accurate, or it's not a real good depiction of how things work, because if you try to find or create some sort of balance most people think about it in a day. They never think about it in a week or a month. And it's always like, well, if I do 2 hours of this, I have to do 2 hours of this, or what have you, where the idea of a rhythm is more of like a sheet of music. And I've said this like on almost every episode, but it's more like a sheet of music where there's gonna be highs and lows in the music, but at the end of the thing, there's a melody. And so I guess my question really for you is, over the course of like a week or 2 weeks, what have you, what's one thing that you would say you and your wife have, or you have done specifically to sort of create that rhythm, whether it's for work or personal, just what's some new activity or new something that you're doing to sort of create that rhythm for yourself?
I try to get kind of carve out special dad time with each of the kids. So for my oldest, maybe we've been playing driveway home run derby with tennis balls. If I have time between calls, um, breaking up the day for the kids. I mean, I'm my wife will sit there and work with the kids on their kind of homeschool stuff, and she may be working with my second grader, or I'm sorry, my soon to be first grader, where I take my soon to be third grader and we go outside and we play baseball for a little bit. And then whenever our daughter's done with her schoolwork, then I may go on a bike ride with her and send our son in for that. So um, it's a balancing act. I mean, I'll kind of sit there and look at my work schedule, and I'm still very very busy at work. It's typically about 4 to 5 calls in a day. Um, but I'll carve out time for lunch break. I'll carve out time for 30-minute bike ride. We kind of have those natural breaks in the day. So as I get those natural breaks in the day, it's like, let's go grab a kid, go make them feel special, go do a fun activity with them. Um, and it's there's areas. I mean, gosh, my kids are so much better bike riders after 60 days of
Yeah, I can
sheltering in place. My dog's now spoiled. It's like, hey, I'm going to get 2 walks a day. So it's just I look to try to do something special with each family member. Whenever the kids go down,
yeah,
um, my wife and I would, before we had kids, we had shows that we watched, and that just kind of fell off. Where it was like, man, we're just doing good to get through the day, and I had a busy travel schedule, and now it's like, hey, let's check out Ozark. We hear a lot of people talking about it, and now we just got through season one, last night, and starting season two soon. So
very cool. Yeah, I gotta imagine that that's super helpful, not just because your kids get to feel special for that chunk of time that you're able to be with them, but it also gives you that sort of mental energy break where you can, I don't want to say turn off, but kind of almost forcefully stop thinking about whatever you have to do for work and like get your head into something completely different, which means when you come back, you're much more likely, I would imagine, to feel maybe not more motivated, but at least have like a fresh mindset when you come back in to do a call or some deep work or whatever you need to get done for professional stuff.
yeah, well, it's funny, and I had a customer one time where they brought in a consultant, and the consultant did this for them, but they were not allowed. They scheduled every call ended 10 minutes before the hour. So they always had a 10-minute buffer between all the calls that they did. Um, so if you schedule a call with them and you're like, hey, I want to get on your calendar from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, they're like, nope, you can have 1 o'clock to 1:50, and you're good at 1:50. We have to, company policy, we have to schedule 10 minutes between calls. And Cisco, we don't do that. We go back to back, and it's like you may do 4 hours of calls, and by that fourth call, the person that you're on is not getting your best. They're getting somebody that's
Very
probably tired and has email that's stacked up. And I look at it and I'm like, whether that's a 30-minute bike ride with the kids, or you know, um, there's more breaks in the day like that. And it's even before we went into the pandemic and broke it up. I mean, smart management consultants looked at it and said, yeah, people are going to be at their best if you give them a little bit of a breather between calls.
You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up because it's actually one of the questions I kind of like to ask folks is what's maybe not a tip, but what's a thing, an activity that everyone can do that you do to sort of break up that day. And I think that's a really good one that I don't know, especially in sales. I don't know that a lot of people not just do, but I think it's almost a bigger problem of giving people allowing themselves to give themselves permission to do that. Because I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's this innate sense that, and this isn't a Cisco thing, this is, I think, corporate culture in general. There's this innate sense that we have to be available for meetings when somebody else wants a meeting, as opposed to sort of taking control of our own schedule and say, no, this 30-minute chunk or this 1 hour chunk or whatever it is is mine to do what I'm going to do with it, whether it's deep work or riding the bikes with the kids or whatever. Like that, it's okay for me to say, yes, I will totally meet with you tomorrow at this time, as opposed to, sorry, I'm not free, and then have to justify why you took some time off. I think that's a really good call out for everybody, that it's okay to give yourself permission to take those times, whether it's with your family and your kids or something else, whatever else is important to you. It doesn't just have to be for kids. Like anything that's important to you is important. Take time for that because you need it. Like you said, if you're going back to back in, customer meetings or deep, planning meetings or whatever it happens to be, you're not going to be 100% when you get done with 4 hours of back to back meetings. You're just not.
Yeah. I had a sales leader that I worked for one time, and he always said, don't confuse activity with results. And it was like,
I like that.
This is, it's one of those things you listen, you're like, man, that sounds really smart. That's a really good saying. And you don't put it in practice. And then you go into, kind of the situation that we've had. And it's like, well, hey, I've got 20 minutes between calls. What am I going to go do? I'm going to go kind of clear my head. I'm going to go, have a little family time. And you start to look at it and you're like, man, I really am better whenever I'm truly in the zone and 100% focused on the task in front of me. And it's like, I one of my takeaways going forward, whenever we do return to, more of a normal environment, will be, don't feel like you've got to say yes to everything. Somebody would rather have, Ben Martin at 100% a day later, or, at a different
Totally.
time than trying to jam everything in.
Yeah. Sorry, your audio was cutting out just a little bit, but I think I got the gist of what you're saying. And it's such a good point. Like it is okay. I think everyone is allowed to feel okay, or be given permission, or to give themselves permission to feel like it's okay to arrange your schedule in a way that makes sense. And if you feel the need to say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or whatever, I need to pull a ripcord and say, hey, listen, I just got off a bunch of meetings. I had these 2 other scheduled, but I just can't be on those because my brain is just fried. Then don't, unless it's something uber critical that you deem so critical you have to be in. Maybe the alternative is taking a walking meeting instead. Put in your AirPods and go walk. Do you need to sit in front of your computer, in front of video the whole time? Maybe that's appropriate, but it's not necessarily needed for every situation. And I think people allowing themselves to feel like it's okay to navigate that in whatever way makes sense, and also to feel comfortable that if they feel like someone else is putting their own opinions on them, you need to feel comfortable saying something to that person like, hey, listen, I get that this is what you're looking for, but this is what I can accommodate. And that's a dialogue I think we need to be having more and more these days, for sure.
Agreed.
Well, listen, Ben, thank you so much. It's been great having you. I really appreciate all the insights. And it's good not only to catch up because it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk, but also to sort of hear, what, you're dealing with in another part of the country from where I'm at, and, sort of different climate that I'm in. We're shelter in place at least for a few more weeks minimum here. So different world everywhere, it feels like.
Absolutely. It's Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome to catch up, and just always a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Well, listen, everybody, thank you again for joining us on At Home. And if you like this content, I really appreciate if you could give me a thumbs up on the channel. That helps the channel out greatly. And if you want to keep up with new videos as they come out, either follow me on LinkedIn, or you can hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and get notified for something new. And any feedback or comments you have, just put them in the comments below. Thank you guys again, and have a great day.